Mambo zenu. Yeah. I know people have been sitting for quite a while. Just stand up for 1 second. We'll do a very quick energizer. But it has to be quick because I don't have long. Turn to your partner. One of you is going to put your hand up like this. The other, let's say like this. The other's going to put their finger under there. So the other person, your partner, is going to put the finger underneath. I'm just demonstrating because there's only one of me. Okay, you've got it in the front there. You can't do it to yourself. You've got to do it to someone else. Yeah, got it. Okay, so I'm going to count to 3. On the count of 3, try and catch the little finger underneath. 1, 2, 3. Any winners there? Yeah, we've got a few winners. Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot. You can sit down. I'm Naomi Rouse from RLabs, Tanzania, and we were given this question: how can we unleash the potential of grassroots innovation ecosystems in Tanzania? And I think our answer is probably not the one you're expecting, but I'm going to talk about what we learn and what we see kind of the front line and the grassroots. So just going to do a little exercise with you. This is Neema. She's a real girl. I've changed her name, but this is really her. She's 15, and she lives in Mbeya, and she's a single mum. Take a look at her for a moment. I think this exercise is actually scarier the older you are, because if you're older, you just see how acutely vulnerable she is. If you're younger, you probably don't feel it quite so painfully. But what do you see? What do you think when you see her? How are you going to advise her? Just take a second. And it's not an academic question either, because we are really working with thousands of girls in this situation. So when she comes to you, how are you going to help her? Then there's another girl called Upendo. She's also a single mum, but she gets on really well with her grandma. And when her parents said she kicked her out of home because she couldn't stay there, similar to Neema, when she got pregnant, she's got her grandmother, who she used to get on very well with because she was very helpful on her grandma's farm when she was younger. What are you going to advise Upendo? So we give this kind of exercise to different groups, and we customize it. And we gave this recently to a donor group, and it was quite easy for them to see for Upendo. You can see that she's got her grandma, she likes farming, she could go back to her grandma's, because even if she's fallen out with her parents, she's still got that relationship. But for Neema, they were stuck. They said she could go and be a house girl. And I was listening, really? Okay. Or she could find an organization to pay for her education. Ziko wapi hizo? Si unajua? It's like winning the lottery if you're trying to find an organization to sponsor you, right? So if we were in that position trying to advise her, she either has to find some financial assistance, or we're actually telling her to go and do something which is on the ILO's list of the worst forms of child labor. That's how bad it is if we're looking at Neema and we can't see the full picture. So what we're seeing here is we're all susceptible to what we call the danger of the single story. You may have seen Chimamanda Adichie's TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. And her message is, if you look at the situation from just one side, the single story becomes the only story. So you see Neema as poor, incapable, and requiring handouts. That's what happens when we do this exercise. Even donors who are supposed to be able to think about a more empowering way to help her came up with those inappropriate solutions. But when we see Upendo, we see her opportunities and resources. And then what we do is we tell them, it's actually one girl. She's called Neema Upendo. But if we saw her from just the one side, we would have really not done her justice, because we wouldn't have been able to help her. So this is something that's really at the heart of our program, and actually not to directly contradict Mheshimiwa Balozi, who said, let's look at what we don't have. But we actually, from the danger of the single story, the danger is in development, if we look at what we don't have, we suddenly feel like we need resources and handouts, that we're dependent. But when we look at what we have, we can see a path to success. And that's what happens when we show young people how to identify the resources around them. Okay, so I've got another question for you. What's the opposite of innovation? Don't know if you've ever thought about this. It'd be good to hear some ideas. Do you mind, Neil? I'll put you on the spot. See here. Or anyone had any ideas? What's the opposite of innovation? In our mind, it's not, oh yeah, we've got a hand here, great. Conservatism, I like that. Yeah, it could be conservatism. And we think it's like mazoea, doing things by habit, doing in the way they always were, doing them that way because that's how they were always done, and not thinking about it, not thinking about how to do things better. And you're wondering what these lemons or limes are doing up here. This is, for me, a really powerful reminder of how you can't take anything for granted. So we work in Iringa, Mbeya, Songwe, Tanga, Dar es Salaam. And in Songwe, we heard something that really surprised us. If a girl isn't married by the time she's 19, this is what she's called. Malimao. Have you heard this? Malimao. Yani chachu. Sio mtam tena. We were shocked. We were really shocked as well. And it just shows how very localized the context is, because even just a few hours down the road in Mbeya, we heard girls saying, I really want to use contraception because I realize that getting pregnant will get in the way of my life goals. But in Songwe, a girl wants to make sure that she's married by the time she's 19 so that she isn't called limao. So imagine if you were doing a program to prevent teenage pregnancy in Songwe and you didn't know this. It's very likely that your efforts aren't going to work, right? Because you didn't know the context. So knowing the context really well is very, very important. So this question of mazoea, we see it a lot in business. People don't want to try something new because they don't realize there's another way of doing things. So for us, innovation is that first step of realizing that just because that was always the way it was done doesn't mean the way you have to do it. We learn a lot from young women like Naomi in their businesses, and we take that up a level when we do work with sawmills, and in the forest sector, we do work at that level with SMEs. But we also really want you to think about when you go into your grassroots innovation, because we hear quite a strong desire from the ecosystem to get out there and be more inclusive. So get out there and do it, but don't bring the media just yet until you've got it right. And I kid you not, the number of organizations that pop up regionally every year for an event with full media in tow to cover their activity and then pop back to town. But if you want to do it properly, but try something small, learn from it, and do it better and better. So we learn so much from the young people that we work with, and some of you may know our inspiring founder, Yusuf Sesanga. He's one of the most humble and wise people I think I've ever met. And last year at work, we had a conflict that we couldn't resolve. And we asked Yusuf what we should do. He said, listen. And we kept listening, and we were still stuck. So we went back to Yusuf and said, look, we're listening, and we still haven't got a solution. So maybe we just need to force our solution. He said, no, listen harder. And that really touched me, because I really think that in today's world, there's a huge place for listening harder and harder. And especially in our work, we really need to listen to what young people want. So what we're saying about grassroots innovation is it starts from listening to what Naomi wants. It's obvious that she doesn't want to create a startup. She wants to provide a secure future for her child. She's very motivated to do that. She wants respect in her community. She wants to be respectable, and she wants to make a contribution. She wants to bring money home. But if we don't understand what young people need, it's going to be very difficult to serve them. You know, we have girls saying in the training, when we start handing out pieces of paper, that they were trembling because they might have to write something. You know, we're not talking about creating apps here. We're just talking about just really writing on a piece of paper. It's really, really daunting for them. We work mainly with young women who haven't been to school or have been to primary school or lower secondary. So I'm going to give you a few takeaways. Listen, then listen harder. Really, really, really know that context. because otherwise the programs are so often pitched at the wrong level for what young people really can and do and what they want to do. Abundance mindset. You may find it surprising to know that in our program, we work with young people who start the program with no income at all and no businesses, and generally are just at home waiting to see what to do after they finish school. And in the last couple of years, they've saved 200 million shillings into their savings groups. That's additional income over and above what they've needed for everyday consumption. So it shows that if you get the right mindset, you absolutely can unlock those resources. And what is the right mindset? It's avoiding the danger of the single story. It's agreeing that that person is capable. They don't need a handout. They can do it, and we help them to find their resources. There's a wonderful phrase that my colleague Kelvin coined, which has really helped us. You know, sometimes when you can put a name to something, it really helps. A suffering moment. We have some different types of suffering moments, but one of them is when we get the context wrong, where we overestimate what people can do. And I think there are a lot of suffering moments in the ecosystem when people overestimate what's needed and pitch it at the wrong level. Another suffering moment is when we don't know what to do and we don't know how to move forward with our programs. And it's really uncomfortable. And what we say in RLabs as well is, you know, be comfortable with the discomfort. Because when you shy away from it, then you go back to doing your copy and paste. You go back to your mazoea. When you feel that discomfort, something important is happening. There's some important learning or there's some important innovation happening. So you have to lean in and don't rush. The answers will come. But if you just avoid the question, then nothing's going to move forward. Innovation, not mazoea. And I put that out there to challenge the hubs as well, because we feel that people are not always honest about what is really working. And just get out there and do it better and better. Thank you so much.